Back then we were running a little marketing business. It was called entertainment marketing. We were doing product placement. So we were putting sort of brands onto celebrities and understanding the kind of benefit that that can then have in terms of brand awareness and brand sales. So that's where the original As Seen on Screen came from. And the website, ironically, before that one wasn't even a retail one. It was just kind of informing people who might have watched a TV program or film what brands appeared within it. We realised we couldn't make any money at doing that because the brands didn't want to pay to be on a website that was generating no traffic, and bear in mind this is back in 2000. So the only way we could monetize it was literally to literally buy stuff and sell it through. We were selling sort of stuff related to film in the early days, and it was the early days of The Matrix. And that's when Keanu Reeves was coming out in this big black long woolen coat, I don't know if you remember. And we thought, what a great idea, we're going to make some of those and sell it as a Matrix coat. And then we thought we'd better be a bit legit, so we wrote to the studio, wherever it was, Universal Studios, and said, is there any chance we can take a license to sell this long, Matrix coat? And we got a letter back in those days, and it said, really like the idea, thank you very much, but unfortunately, as a result of what's been happening in the US over the last month or so, we don't think that's a good idea. And effectively, that was a time when a student had run mock in a campus with a long, dark coat on and had a shotgun underneath. So we're going, oh my God. So by that time, we'd made all these coats, and it was like, oh, shit. And to be honest, it was probably about 10–15% of our stock we tied up in these coats that we were going to sell. So we had all that money tied up in stock. All these coats were sat in the warehouse going nowhere. And they were in a meeting with our lovely creative people, and somebody went, what are we doing with those coats? Oh, can't do anything with them. We can't sell them. So why don't we just sell them as long black coats? Why have we got to make any reference at all to the Matrix? And sort of, that eureka moment, oh my God, what a great idea. So we kind of put them on the website and made no reference to the Matrix or Keanu Reeves and sold them, and there you go. So, but going back to what we stumbled on more than anything else was that if you think about what we were doing, we were selling products that were linked to celebrities and kind of fashion icons even back then. And that was because of our old product placement days. But actually, because I'd had a background in sort of media as well, we'd unwittingly fall into this place where you could put a picture, a garment, an item of clothing next to a celebrity or style icon or fashion icon, which, if you think about it, all the magazines have been doing for years and years and years. Here's the look, here's the celebrity. But they couldn't then make that sale happen. There was no buy button attached to it. But if you think about a web page, that's exactly what we were doing. So you had the product, the celebrity, and the buy button all in one place. And that was the kind of eureka moment. So you're effectively getting all that inspiration that magazines have next to the buy button. So I think that was the kind of the big change that set us on our journey. So just to put it into Kensington in numbers now, we only ever raised £2.8 million, which I'm really, really proud of, because not only could we not have raised any more, because you've got to remember this is 2000, 2001, the bubble had gone up, anything .com related nobody was interested in. So we just had to kind of dig deep and keep going. So when people ask me, how did you do that? I said, well, we couldn't really go bust. We didn't have any money. We didn't have enough money to go bust. So we always kept things really, really tight. We had our little marketing business that was chipping in a few £100,000 a year to keep it going. So the big difference between us and I suppose everybody else back then is they all raised lots of money, spent through it, had very high cost bases, but no sales to kind of meet it, whereas we had very small cost base and we could see the sales starting to grow. So that's why we kept going. This year will be our first £1 billion year. So actually through the tills in retail terms, about 1.3, 1.4 billion of retail sales will go through. Today we employ about 4,500 people across the UK and some of those countries that you saw. There's about 70,000 products on ASOS today, but the more important thing is the new. So every week, and you saw some of the studios there, we are uploading about 2,700 new products onto the website. We've got our own magazine, which interestingly is kind of the second biggest fashion magazine now in the UK in terms of who it goes to in circulation terms. But the beautiful thing there is completely disrupted that model. Magazines rely on cover prices and advertising. Well, I send it out for free, I don't need the cover price, and I make the money from the clothes that are sold within it. That's the holy grail. So actually we can get advertisers who want to be in that magazine paying for us to promote our product to our customers through a paid media channel. So it's almost that lovely virtuous circle where our marketing is being paid for by brands who want to associate themselves with ASOS. And there's something else going on in fashion which I find absolutely fascinating now, which is, I never thought I'd kind of hear sort of the word music and fashion sort of in terms of structural shift, but it's really happening, and it's happening in real time now on our website, and I can see this. So I've got 4 examples of brands here, all with a very different story to tell. So River Island is one of our biggest brands. We sell it on ASOS. We know our 20-something customers love it. It's got 99.9% brand awareness. And we probably have about 600 or 700 options at any one time from River Island on our website. Fantastic, big tick. Needle and Thread was a brand with zero brand awareness that nobody had ever heard of. They couldn't have heard of it because we kind of gave birth to it. It's based in our basement. It's run by just somebody we know who happened to be a designer who makes fantastic product. Okay, it's slightly higher than our average price point because it's fully embellished and made in India. It's beautiful. But when we put that same dress next to a River Island dress on a website, what's going on? What's going on is that customers got an association with River Island, but because it's on an ASOS page, in a category page of dresses, she's now looking at another brand she's never seen before, never heard of, but she's judging it purely on the merit of the product now, not by some preconception of what it was in high street world. This is where what you thought was an asset in fashion retail world by having 400 stores across a high street is disappearing by the second. And it's the same as the music industry. What was dominant and played to you is because what you had to listen to on the radio because that's what they played, what you could buy in the shop because that's what they sold, and you were all steered towards this path of creating those top 10, top 20 brands. And this is going to happen in fashion. And then we take the ASOS home brand. Ironically, ASOS home brand is about 50% of what we sell now. So this year is about 450, 500 million pounds worth of sales against the ASOS home brand product. So technically, that is the biggest fashion brand on the planet that has never had a shop. And I love this as well. I mean, we are, talk about change, structural shift. That warehouse you saw in that picture is sat on top of the old Grimethorpe colliery up in Barnsley. I don't know who knows or remembers the Grimethorpe colliery. That was the one that featured in the film Brassed Off with Pete Postlethwaite. So in 1993, they shut that pit. Overnight, they shut it. There were 5,000 people employed in that area. So you're talking within a 5 to 10 mile circumference. 5,000 people associated with that mining community, and overnight it went. Now, okay, it didn't happen year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, but roll it forward to 2013, ASOS has a bloody great big warehouse sat right on top of the Grimethorpe colliery. I know it's sat right on top of it because we were trying to extend it, and we can't extend it in certain ways because bloody great big holes in the ground, but we can extend it out a bit, and we're now employing 3,500 people. So taking a community that was completely devastated, not but 20 years ago, and completely rebuilding that back, which I love.
It's all hard work. There is no easy way. It's really tough, particularly in the early days. It is about these 3 words. And the Prime Minister talks about aspiration. Well, it's great to talk about it, but when you do it, when you are really trying to get somewhere, when you're inspired by somebody or something and an idea, and then the hard work. Ale on its own is smooth and delicious. With food, I found it too bitter and too heavy. So then I thought, it wasn't a eureka moment, no jumping out of a bath and running naked down a street. It evolved. And the idea was, why don't I produce a beer that has the refreshment of a lager and the smoothness of an ale combined? That appeals globally, that appeals to men and women alike, and that accompanies all food, and in particular, Indian food. That's the idea. What a simple idea. Why didn't somebody think of that before? Beer, one of the most ancient industries you can imagine. Then I had this mission. I think you have to have a goal. I started £20,000 of student debt to pay off, no money, no experience in the industry, but I wanted to make the finest ever Indian beer, and I wanted to make it a global beer brand. Thing is, it's against all the odds. In that position, Kingfisher, the biggest beer brand in India, had already been here for 8 years, was already brewing in the UK. Carlsberg was in every Indian restaurant. Brands like Stella Artois were founded in the 14th century. And of course, then nobody believes you have a chance. If I'd conducted Michael Porter of Harvard Business School's 5 forces market entry analysis, I would have failed all 5. And then your family, the people closest to you. My father, Indian Army officer, when he retired, he was Commander-in-Chief of the Central Indian Army, 350,000 people under his command. I knew he couldn't support me financially because Indian Army officers in those days got paid very badly. In a wedding, he said, I never had to dissuade my sons from joining the army. All I did was show them my paycheck. He said, no money from Dad. I said, maybe he'll support me emotionally. And when I was developing the beer in Bangalore, I'd go up to his headquarters just to have a break, Dad, my own business, Cobra Beer. Isn't this great? Isn't it fantastic? What are you doing? All this education. You're becoming an import-export walla. Get a proper job. Timing is everything. In Nick's business, what timing? On the one hand, horrible timing, straight after the dot-com bubble and crash. On the other hand, the internet had arrived and was going to take off, had taken off. In our case, this graph, we've been globalized because everywhere else in the world, beer is lager. And Cobra is technically a lager, although it sits in between a lager and an ale. And you know, before I was born, 1% lager, now almost 90%. The other thing is, we are a nation of curryholics. We are addicted to Indian food, emotionally and physically. So for 7 years, I brewed it in Bangalore, exported it from Bangalore to the UK. It was the biggest export beer from India. To this day, Cobra is the biggest ever export beer out of India. And then my partner, who I started with, left the business. I sold some shares, bought him out first, sold some shares, built a team, it's the best thing I did. Sales doubled. My problems of importing Cobra Beer from India quadrupled. Containers getting stuck, quality problems. So he was to go around to the Indian restaurants. And my car was, yours was a small car. Mine was a very first company car, 295 pounds, bright green, battered Citroën de Chevaux. You know those cars that look like people, called Albert. And you know, I'm not exaggerating any of this. Fulham Palace Road, roof conversion, Albert Park at Bishop's Park. Every morning, go to Albert, push start. Every morning. Then loaded up with Cobra Beer. You could get 15 cases if you put some on the front seat, back seat, in the boot. Drive off, and while driving, if you look down, you could see the road through the holes in the floor of the car. None of this exaggerated. It failed its MOT 3 times eventually. Then we drive a little bit ahead of the restaurants because they wouldn't see the delivery vehicle, the most expensive ever Indian beer. Walk a few extra steps. Cobra Beer, extra smooth, less gassy, delicious, goes really well with Indian food. We don't need it. We've got all these other beers. Now, come on, please, try it. Sorry, we don't drink. 2/3 of the Indian restaurants are owned and run by Bangladeshis, Muslims. Don't drink for religious reasons. The other 1/3, Pakistanis, don't drink. Sri Lankans, Nepalese, Indians, so a whole proportion didn't drink. And I learned my lesson from them. They said, it doesn't matter that we don't drink, it's our customers that matter. If your product is so fantastic, leave 2 bottles, we'll try it with our regular customers. If they like it, we'll put in our first order. If our wider customers like it, we will reorder. And we got a 99% reorder rate off the go. Because when you're given that chance, your product's got to deliver. And to me, that was seeing Nick's map over there, selling to my Indian restaurants from Albert. I visualized that all I now need to do is replicate these reorders around the world. And that's what we're doing. And you get that confidence, but it all came down to asking and having faith in the customer. We started advertising. We could afford to advertise about 8 years after we started. Saatchi and Saatchi did this for us. Great campaign to establish Cobra as the best beer to drink with Indian food. The less gassy, more classy Curryholics beer. The beer from Bangalore that lets you eat more curry. Then, everything was going fantastically well until the financial crisis started. We were looking for money. We had a nasty hedge fund that had invested in us. They said, no more money from us, raise some more money. We got the biggest drinks company in the world to invest in us. Deal done, due diligence done. And in the summer of 2008, the chief executive went on holiday. I went on holiday. Our team started the integration. We were coming back from holiday with all the legal documentation ready to sign. All done and almost dusted. 2 weeks before Lehman's went bust, they pulled out of the deal. We'd run out of money completely. What do you do? Luckily, I had a plan B. A big Indian bank loaned me the money, huge amount of money, on a personal guarantee, and we saved the business. Do you know they never teach you about luck in business schools? The Indian bank told us if this had happened after Lehman's had gone bust, they would not have lent me the money. What would we have done then? My favorite definition of luck is when determination meets opportunity.
When I joined Belu very late in 2009, I'd answered an advert about helping save the planet, basically. A little bit cheesy when I look back now. But I'd gone through one of those life-defining moments. I'd been asking myself, what's my purpose? I had a background working in media. I worked for EMAP, now Bauer, for many years, publishing magazines, a passion that I still have. I then worked for Northern Foods and for Audi with some great brands. And I'd worked at Barclays developing financial propositions for 5 years, which I hated. So here was a natural mineral water brand, which was Penguin approved, using compostable bottles, joining the Live Earth petition, the first bottled water that doesn't contribute to climate change, message after message of stuff. And the great thing about Belu, because when you've got a proposition that's all about saving the environment, you're going to really engage people, right? This was in 2009. Nobody gave a monkeys. And the reality was, at that point, Belu had lost £1.9 million from the period 2004 from launch to 2009. It lost £1.9 million. And the reason it had lost £1.9 million was because its primary aim was to actually be a campaigning brand. It recognised and had a very worthy cause of saying the industry's bad. All of this plastic, all of this burning of oil, all of this shipping water from Fiji and Italy is wrong. Let's campaign against it. It wasn't focused on running a self-sustaining business. I kind of got a bit bullish and thought, well, I'm not going to be around in the new year because this business isn't going to be. I'm going to write a paper for the investors about, what's to save out of the business. And in fact, I was asked directly, Karen, is there a brand here? You've got lots of experience, your backgrounds and working with some big brands. Is there something to save? And I guess my first message about risk was there wasn't much to lose. And we wrote our manifesto, which is about one day we all hope bottled water companies will be different. They'll only source and sell water within the same country. Their bottles will be made using recycled glass or plastic. They'll be 100% carbon neutral. All profits will go to water projects in the world's poorest communities. Eventually, we really hope that all bottled water will be produced this way, but at the moment, there's only one, Belu, made with mineral water and ethics, and that's simply what we are. We are a mineral water company. We supply restaurants and hotels and Sainsbury's with mineral water, and all of our profits from producing the greenest possible product we can, so the lowest footprint that we can make, all of our profits then go to our partner, WaterAid. A few stories about Belu. It's really obvious, isn't it? If you're operationally focused, if you don't, you won't have any customers. And we just had to stop. We just had to stop focusing on delivering, selling water where we were losing money. I mean, why would you do that? But it's very easy, and you wouldn't believe how many businesses that you will come across where the business is so operationally focused. The end game is everybody still has their job, the balance sheet's going the wrong way, and the operations can be massively efficient, but very costly. So we just stopped and started again and said, who's our market, what do they need, and how shall we supply that efficiently and profitably? We used to supply direct. And the problem with supplying direct, I think we all have to do it for a time. We all have those vans and those cars that hold those precious memories. But there comes a point where if you want scale, if you want traction, you have to just stop and recognise you can't do both and figure out the way from one to the other. And that's a huge risk. The concept of convincing your board or your team that you need to make less money on everything you sell, but sell more to then make more, makes people really nervous. It's one of those leaps of faith you have to take a very small business to any kind of scale of distribution. But my background was in marketing and was in branding, and David, who worked with me at that time, had a creative background. We worked through and sorted out all these operational things that had to be done. We took some tough decisions. We let some people go. We got rid of offices. We scaled right back and made it simple before we could move forward. But because we had lots of creative bones within us, we, of course, got very excited about the idea that we could prove in a big market with big brands, we could create a brand, couldn't we? We could compete and we could take market share with a marketing budget of £18,000 in our model. So for all of those in the audience thinking about creating a brand and that being your startup idea, it is possible to have some of your best ideas on no money or very little money. And again, partnership and sharing skills and collaboration are a great way to get some of those going. I think the lessons for us have been keep it simple, keep it focused, and keep it energized. You know, for us, being able to picture the outcome has kept us going in our darkest days. My team can all do their 15 times table in their sleep because every £15 that we're able to pass over to WaterAid transforms one life long term. It gives them access to clean water, sanitation, and hygiene education. So, you know, we never spend anything. We always invest and we always want a positive return. Otherwise, we might as well transform that life today. This is a bit of a mantra for us in the office. Bad things will happen, right? Don't focus on the bad thing. Get off your arse and turn it into something positive. We lost one of our biggest accounts. One of those online e-tender, e-auction, procuring companies went and promised our best customer they could save them a fortune. And, you know, we're a premium product. If they're going to buy on price, they're not going to buy Belu. In fact, if they don't care about the environment, if they don't want to support WaterAid, they're not going to buy Belu. They just want water. They don't believe their customers care. They buy any water. So when we lost that, we hired Procure4 to work with us to review our own supply chain and our own buying. And as a result of that, we've changed almost everything about our process, and we're a much more efficient business as a result. But it's not just about doing good business, it's about being good to do business with. If the concept of partnership can work for you through honesty, through transparency, sometimes under contract, don't trust everybody, but if you can develop partnerships that genuinely work, when one of us is a not-for-profit and all of our partners are commercial businesses, then all businesses should be able to create positive partnerships. And my daughter recently went through the whole career dilemma of which university should I go to, what should I study. And the best advice that I could give to her, which again, she always plays back to me, is find out what you're good at and do something good with it. Because for me, the lesson I've learned is if it feels right and you feel like you're successful, there is no better place to be.
You were talking a bit about what it means to build an extraordinary brand. And my question for each of you is what you think it takes to build an extraordinary board. So as an entrepreneur, at some point you're probably going to be building a board. And what advice
a board
you can
of
share.
directors.
Yeah.
Blimey. So we've been, you know, we were floated back in 2001, like in a really dark day. So the board has evolved. I think I've probably, you know, only now got the best board. You know, you sort of in the early days you've got an eclectic bunch of quite a few randoms actually who kind of sit around it. You know, but back in those early days, you know, it's the entrepreneur that's driving the business, and the board is really there to sort of facilitate a bit. Now, you know, rolling on, I can now look at around the table on the board, and I've got a fantastic bunch of, you know, chairman who ran Amazon in the UK for the best part of 7 years. You know, what wealth of experience he brings to me. You know, some people we mutually know, you know, just very rounded. But people who, you know, a board for us has got to be somebody that's sat in a hot seat of a very fast-paced business. And is willing to, you know, whatever that means in terms of operational guidance and stuff, it's very loose hand on the tiller and just making sure we're all kind of, you know, when you're running at 1,000,000 miles an hour, as we do, you know, that board's really important. They've had that kind of breadth of experience. So I've only now just got the board that I really wanted to.
And for me, trying to change so many things and with a small team, I needed a board that would be supportive, keep out of the way and help me when I needed them. and at the same time, make sure from a governance perspective, we had done the things we needed to do so that something really simple didn't get in the way of where we were going. That said, don't confuse having a small board with having too few advisors. You don't have to formalize advisory relationships in that same way. Sometimes you think you need lots of help and information, and it'll be for a very short period. Often it's not help and information you need at all, it's you need somebody to open a door. So, you know, don't get me wrong, we will have, and we're talking at the moment about having someone from WaterAid on our board, which I think is a really, you know, it's a big step forward for them, it's an obvious step forward for us. We will have a bigger board as we grow, but it's a really important decision to make. And as long as they don't get in their way, as long as they're genuinely helping you, then that for me right now is what we need.
Well, you know, I started with 2 of us. And so the board was 2 people, and there were 2 people in the business. We did everything. And I think it's a great way to start when you start from scratch and there are just two of you, because however big we've grown, even now with Molson Coors, with thousands of employees just in the UK, I've done what every one of those employees in a way has done. I've delivered the beer, I've been involved in the production, I've done the marketing, I've done the sales, the whole lot, which is great. Raised the finance. And on the other extreme, I'm the senior independent director of a FTSE 250 company called Booker. The Booker Prize is named after Booker, but actually it's the biggest wholesale company in Britain. It's a 5 billion turnover company with 15,000 employees. Now, there, the board we have is fantastic. I mean, it's in many ways a perfect board. But a board is only as good as if you've got to have an excellent chief executive, excellent finance director, excellent operations director, excellent company secretary, and then the non-executive directors. Do you have a diverse board? You know how few women there are on boards in the UK? It's shocking. Do you know how many women chief executives there are of the FTSE 100 companies? There are only 3, and now it's down to 2. It's really bad. Many of the boards don't even have one woman on the board. So we've got 2 women on the board. We're pretty diverse, and people who really know their stuff and can provide independent, objective advice to the company. So competence, independence, objectivity, and a free, open environment to bring up anything and not be scared to bring up anything. Good chairman.
Do you think you need to evolve your product, or you've got such belief in the market is such that you can keep on having that Cobra Beer, which was the same as 10 years ago?
I think anyone, all 3 of us, and you've probably seen, believe in constant innovation and creativity and coming up with new things and new ways of doing things. And you can have that, but you can also have consistency with your product. And something like beer and a brand of beer, I don't want Cobra Beer to taste any different 100 years from now than it tastes today. And believe you me, people 100 years from now will still love it as much as they love it now. Human beings' tastes may change and evolve, but some things don't, A good meal is a good meal, And a good beer, in our case, it's a very complicated recipe. A normal German beer is quite boring. It's got malt, yeast, water, and 1 variety of hops. We've got malt, yeast, water, 4 varieties of hops, and maize, and rice, and wheat, and a really complicated recipe. And I don't want it to ever change. I want it to stay the same. But I want to innovate in every other way. And I want to bring out lots of new types of beer, which we do. So we've got a brand, something called King Cobra. Any of you here tasted King Cobra? Wait, we've got a few hands, yes? A few. Brilliant. Isn't it amazing? It's the world's first double fermented lager made with an ale yeast in Belgium. So we put an ale yeast into a champagne bottle, and then we re-ferment inside the bottle, let it cool down, unpasteurized, 18 months shelf life, never been done before. Delicious. You can innovate in that way.
Amazing.
And what I really want to know is, what's been your toughest challenge to date in growing your businesses to where they are?
People break first. Everything else you can sort of plan for. So you can plan for a bigger warehouse, you can plan to, upgrade your technology, all that kind of stuff. What you can't plan for necessarily are people. And when, we've doubled almost every kind of 2 years, and the people you can employ 10 years ago relative to people you can employ now, and that's been the hardest challenge, and having to let, people who are really great friends, because when you're young, when you're small, you've got a tiny team, and these guys run around doing everything for you, but you reach a limit, and that really holds the business back. And when you release that and get somebody in who's far more capable, suddenly you're on a whole different trajectory again. And I can almost look back, and there's been 5 or 6 instances of that. So the hardest bit actually was having to let, not really good people, but really great, nice people go. But actually in doing it, it was almost a relief for them as well, because you could see that the pressure was mounting in their roles. And actually, nobody likes to face up to that. But when you do sort of take them out, it's kind of relief for them and the organisation as well.